Chapter 1. Enough is Enough. My wife Jess and I sat down for a Sunday brunch. We were celebrating our anniversary, and our plan was to go on a hike after we finished our meal. Jess and I had been looking forward to that day. We were in a busy season of life, so it had been weeks since we had the opportunity to do something like that. Were it not for our anniversary, I'm not so sure we would have been so intentional about our day trip. I remember the look on Jessica's face. She sat across the table from me and smiled with contentment. Finally, getting some time for just us, we were in great moods. Only minutes after we received our food, I sensed a familiar, yet unwelcome feeling. In my mind, I pleaded with myself, please, not now, not now, not now. There's never a good time for what was happening to me. But I also can't think of a worse time than an anniversary date. I did my best to ignore it, to suppress it, but I knew that I would eventually lose control again. Trying to distract myself from the internal battle, I stared at Jess as she spoke about something. I wasn't able to focus enough to make out what she was saying. Then it got worse. There was a ringing in my ears. I felt blood rush to my face. My heart began to beat so heavily that I could feel my pulse in my neck. My vision became blurry, and my face went numb. I was having a full-blown panic attack there in public, in front of my wife, in the middle of our anniversary brunch. In moments of panic, reason rarely prevails. I knew it was just another panic attack. However, anxiety always insists on asking, but what if it's more? I couldn't bring myself to be logical. As I did during almost every other panic episode, I imagined the worst-case scenario, that I was dying. Logic told me, it's just anxiety. Calm down, it'll pass. Fear shouted, you're dying. Get to a hospital now. With no regard for anyone but myself, I grabbed my wallet, ran up to our waitress, and paid the bill. I fumbled for words as I fretted, I need to get out of here now. I have to pay this bill. Take the money. Keep the change. In an almost motherly way, the waitress looked at me and assured, your color looks fine. You're talking normal. Sweetie, you're just having a panic attack. I had never before met that woman. I can only assume that her boldness was prompted by the Holy Spirit. That moment, I was much too fearful to listen for his voice myself. Looking back, I can see he was trying to speak to me through her. I know he was saying, don't let fear win. Don't allow fear to steal this moment from you. Don't allow fear to steal this moment from Jess. Had I been at all reasonable, I would have paused and realized what was happening. I would have remembered the countless times when I had survived a panic attack in the past. I would have breathed slowly for a few minutes, prayed, and then moved on with my day. Unfortunately, on that day, I chose fear. Like so many times before, I found myself waiting to be seen at urgent care. Jess had driven me there in our car, and she sat next to me in the waiting room, comforting me. I remember sitting on a waiting room chair, slumped over with my hands in my face. I was covering my face to help myself calm down, but I was also embarrassed by the scene I had caused. My body was shaking. Jess placed her hand on my back and sat with me. There was really nothing to be said. As we waited for the urgent care staff to call my name, the panic began to subside. After about 45 minutes of waiting, I became level again. I felt the panic release my body. Jess and I left the hospital without me being examined by a doctor. I didn't need to be examined. I knew exactly what had happened to me, because it had happened to me so many times before. As Jess and I drove home, all I could do was apologize to her again and again. She was so sweet and understanding about it, insisting that there was no need to apologize. Yet I felt so angry with myself for allowing yet another panic attack to ruin yet another beautiful moment. I kept thinking about how Jess was smiling just before I allowed my anxiety to get the better of me. Then, of course, the enemy began to relentlessly taunt. Aren't you a man of God? You're so weak. You're a fake. I felt so helpless and ashamed. I was also confused. I asked myself serious questions. Haven't I already been set free from this? How many more times am I going to have to defeat this darkness? How can this continue to happen when I'm walking with the Holy Spirit? How is this possible in the life of a faith-filled believer? Lord, I prayed, I've seen you do miracles for so many others. Why won't you do this miracle for me? Absolutely exhausted, I was tired of my battle with anxiety. Actually, it wasn't just anxiety I battled. I battled the devastating duo that is anxiety and depression. Truly, I was tired of it. I was tired of the heaviness that weighed upon me. I was embarrassed by my struggle. I felt faithless and fake. I had read of the great revivalists and evangelists of times past. Some of them had lost their minds due to the pressures of ministry and the heaviness of mental and emotional battles. I wondered, am I going to repeat their mistakes? Will I be remembered as an evangelist who lost his mind? How could a minister of the gospel suffer with anxiety and depression? How was it possible for such bondage to find a place in my life? Was I being attacked? Was I under witchcraft? A curse? Was it demon possession, oppression, or just an emotional problem? Was it an open door? What exactly was happening? Whatever this is, I decided, enough is enough.